Yeah, let's do it.
So jumping right into Logz.io, I'm going to first demonstrate how we can use the new App 360 functionality to quickly troubleshoot an issue within my infrastructure, and then second, how we can quickly instrument our services using Easy Connect. Now, how do I know that there's an issue within my infrastructure? If I go into Slack, you can see that I got a notification just a few moments ago. This is a latency anomaly detection that I set up using Logz.io to fire when I see something anomalous happening with my services in terms of latency. So when I click on the service overview, what I'm going to be brought to is a view that looks something like this. Now I can see since this was happening on my front end service, this is where I'm going to be brought. And we can see that there was a spike in latency, right? On top of that, the error ratios are spiking as well. So I'm receiving a lot more errors. And this most likely is because there is a lot of pod restarts. And for that, I won't be able to successfully connect, right? So I'm getting a lot of misconnections. And then on top of that, when we look in our infrastructure, on the pod level, we can see that my CPU is kind of flat, but our memory is spiking drastically. So I assume that this is causing some sort of out of memory on the pod level, which is causing restarts. And then what we can see here is the error ratio spiking, and then saturation and something like latency is going to have a correlated effect. But what Logz.io is really doing here is we're correlating the metrics, the logs, and the traces all in one aggregated view. So on the front end level, we can see that the latency spiked. And then we also get our operations in terms of traces, what is causing a long time to essentially perform. So in this case, HTTP GET requests, a GET request to the product catalog. But if I take one step back here, I don't really know exactly what is wrong with my individual services. I just kind of have a holistic view that the front end, there's something going wrong in terms of latency. So if I click back into the services, and then on the right-hand corner, I click on map, we can see that I am getting a sort of a topographical view of my microservices. Now, everything is communicating, and the front end is kind of the user interface to this application. So if I click on my front end service, which I got the anomalous alert on in terms of latency, and click apply, we're going to see that this is for the error ratio, but I really want to look at latency. So when I look at latency, what I'm seeing is the front end is having some anomalous behavior that's detected, and then my recommendation service is probably what's going wrong here. So when I click on the recommendation service drill down, what we're going to see here is that latency has drastically increased. So if I look at the last 15 minutes from when I received this notification, you can see that there is a spike in latency here. And the prior day, we're seeing that it was only 10 milliseconds, but now it's up to 161 milliseconds, which is kind of alarming to me. So I want to know why this is. We can see my memory has jacked up and is pretty volatile. So I want to really know why that is. And what I can see from this deployment view, if I click on this deployment, is that this is going to jump into a GitHub repo where I use CI/CD to sort of push my commits out. And what I can see here is that there is an enable cache flag that's set from false, but now it's being set to true. So I can see that from my logs, I'm getting a lot of cache hits and I'm getting a lot of cache misses. So this is probably indicating to me that there is some sort of issue with the caching service. So what I really need to do is take this from the deployment approach and then change this back to false to see that latency drop and become not an anomaly, right? So now that I know what the issue is with my recommendation service, maybe I want to take the approach of looking at it from a different angle, right? And what I can do here with the trace view under operations is look at what's going on when reaching the get product list. So if I click into here, what we're going to see is that we still have our latency spiking and we have our deployment view. However, when I click on the duration, what I'm going to see here, if I'm doing it from a descending view, is that these requests, some are longer than others. So if I click on this trace group, I'm going to be brought to Jaeger. And what we're going to see here from a front-end perspective is the get product list is going to have a app cache hit of false. Now, what I'm going to notice when I search for my app cache hits on the recommendation service specifically is that there's going to be a drastic difference between the latency or the length of the request when we're looking at cache hits of false opposed to true, right? So if I look at app cache hit equals false, and then I find these traces on the recommendation service, we're going to see a lot of these jack up from 6.78 seconds down the list, but we're going to get some really long requests. But if I look at something like true, we're not going to see requests as long. So you'll see here that we get things in the millisecond. We get a lot of requests in the milliseconds on average. So this is going to look a lot different in terms of how long these requests take. Now, what I showed you was this App360 service overview, the service map, and then how to drill down in different views. But what if I just want to get my data into Logz.io to start off with? What you can use is something called Logz.io Easy Connect. And what Logz.io Easy Connect allows you to do is auto-instrument your services to get SPM and trace data into Logz.io quickly. So what you can do at the Logz.io Easy Connect level, once you install our Helm chart, it's very straightforward, right? All you have to do is port forward the service on your Kubernetes cluster, and then all you have to do is click edit on the services we detect and just change your log type. And then what you can do is click on deploy, and this is going to deploy and restart your service on your cluster. And then what we're going to do is add annotations to your individual pods to be able to auto-instrument using OpenTelemetry. This will start sending in traces and your SPM metrics to be able to generate the service overview and be seen in Jaeger. So if you have any questions, as always, please reach out to Logz.io support or talk to your customer success engineer like myself. All right, take care.